viewers, I'm Miss Mkosana from Lucid Drift Secondary School. Welcome to the Eastern Cape Department of Education Broadcast Studios. Today's lesson will be on agricultural marketing, and I'll be covering three subtopics. That is the price determination, demand and supply, the elasticity, price elasticity, and also the shift in demand and supply curve. A back-to-back for your full understanding. And the first topic that we'll be looking at is the price determination, which includes the demand and supply. Under this subtopic, you need to be able to define the demand, define the supply, be able to state the law of demand and state the law of supply, know the factors that affect demand of a product and that of supply. And most importantly, you need to be able to draw the graph. Okay. And then the definition for the demand, we say the demand refers to the amount of products that consumers are willing to buy at a given price. So if consumers decide to buy high amount of the consumers, meaning the demand for those products will be, so when we define the demand, we say the amount of products that consumers are willing to buy at a given price. That is a definition of a demand. Then when we state the law of demand, we say the higher the price of a product, the lower the quantity demanded for that product. For example, here's a graph that shows the law of demand. And if that means if the price of a product is high, consumers will not buy much of that product. And if the price of the product, the lower the price of a product, the higher the demand. Once the price of a product decreases, consumers will buy more of that product. That's what the law of demand states. And then we have different factors that affect the demand of a product. For example, the first one is the one that we've just talked about, the price of a product. When the price of a product changes, the demand of the product will also change. The quality of a product. When the quality of a product is good, consumers will buy more of that product. But if the quality of a product is poor, consumers will buy less of the product. Think of a product, for example, such as the spinach. Consumers are buying the spinach, but if the spinach is of good qualities, that is, it is dark greenish in color, it has firm leaves, most consumers will buy the product. But if it is of poor quality, it is yellow, it has yellow leaves, brown leaves, dark patches, so that is a poor quality of the spinach, meaning the demand for that product will be low. That is the quality. And also consumer preferences. The product that is mostly preferred by the consumers will have high amount of demand. And also a product that is in fashion at the time will have high demand, or the quantity demanded will be high. But when it is out of fashion, the quantity demand will decrease. And during the festive season, some products become very high in demand due to the season. But when we're out of the festive season, the demand for those products decrease. So here's the graph. This is an example of a graph that shows the demand. When you're drawing a graph illustrating the demand, on the y-axis, you need to have the price together with the units for the price. The units for the price is rands. Then on the x-axis, you need to have quantity demand with the units, whether it's kgs, bags, or packets. So then the demand curve is down sloping to the right. So this is an example of a demand curve, but we will draw the graph. When we draw the graph, this is an example of the information that we'll use to draw a graph. We have the price. We have the price of the product. We have the oranges that are bought in bags. So when we're drawing the graph, we'll use this information that we're given. The table below shows the quantity of oranges bought per week at different prices. So draw a line graph illustrating the amount of oranges or the quantity of oranges that are bought per week in different prices. When you're drawing the graph, you need to have the caption. You need to label the y-axis and the x-axis. So when we're drawing the graph, we have our graph. This is our graph. We have the scale. We have the scale, then it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80. Make sure that the spaces in between are equal. Then you are labeling now on the y-axis. With this side, always we have the price. Then the price has the units, which is rands. And then on the y-axis, we're also doing the scale. The spaces in between need to be equal. We have, let's say, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, and it's 1,000, right? Then let's label. This side, we have a quantity demanded. We have a quantity demanded in bags. In bags, because the units for our oranges is bags. Then now you need to start plotting using that information that you are given on the table. So when you are plotting your graph, you will start plotting using this information. For example, we have price at 5 rands. What was at 5 rands? What was the quantity demand? You plot the graph. And then at the end of your graph, the curve needs to be down sloping. When you've plotted using this information, it has to be down sloping. And when you have put your points, when you put your points like this, drawing the graph, make sure that when you are starting to draw the line, you start at the beginning of your point, you continue, and you end at your last point. Don't go beyond the point. So that is how you draw a line graph illustrating the demand. Illustrating the demand, this is your graph, which shows the demand curve. So a demand curve, I said it is down sloping to the right. This is the demand curve. Okay, let's continue. Now we have the supply. The supply, when we define the supply, we say the amount of products a producer now, not a consumer, a producer is willing and able to provide the market at a certain price. So the amount of products that the the producers can provide to the market, that is the supply. And the supply also has, we have the law of supply. The law of supply states that the higher the price of a product, the higher the higher the supply, and the lower the price of a product, the lower the supply. The relationship between the two is directly proportional. This is an example of a graph showing the supply. It is up sloping to the right. The demand was down sloping to the right. That is the difference. Also, in the supply curve, you need to have quantity on the x-axis, price on the y-axis. It goes with the units. And also you need to have the caption. The caption, you need to make sure that on the caption, the variables or the labels on the y-axis and the x-axis appear on the caption. That will be your correct caption. And then the law of supply, as we have already said, the higher the price of a product, the higher the supply. Preferably when you're stating the law of supply or the law of demand, start with the price. And the factors that affect the supply of a product, the first one is the price of a product. As we've said, when the price of a product changes, the supply will also change, and also the availability of competitive products. If there are new competitive products in the market, there will be a change in the supply of that product. The environmental conditions also have an impact on the supply of the products. For example, environmental conditions such as the weather conditions, hail, for example, can lead to a decrease in supply because it will damage the products. or even the diseases and pests can have an impact because it will damage the products. So it won't be easy for a producer to sell or to provide the markets with the damaged products. So that is the supply. Then let's continue. Now we are going to the price elasticity. We have the price elasticity of demand, we have the price elasticity of supply, which refers to the response of the supply or demand due to a change in price. If there's a change in price, how does the demand go, or how does the supply? So now we are going to the price elasticity of demand. It is the measure of how much the demand for a product changes if there's a change in price. A price of a product has changed. How much does the demand change? That is the price elasticity. Then we differentiate between the two, or we divide this price elasticity. There's price elastic demand, there is price inelastic. If, as there's a change in price of a product, and that change in price of a product leads to a huge change in quantity demand, meaning it is price elastic. The product or the demand of the product is price elastic, meaning there's a huge change. A large amount of consumers decided to stop buying the product due to a change in price. So that is price elastic. But if it is price inelastic, if there's a change in price, it will cause a little or no change at all in quantity demanded. For example, if we say a product is price inelastic, let's talk about the petrol. Petrol prices are increasing, but the consumers continue buying the petrol, meaning it is price inelastic. There's a little change or there's no change at all in the demand of the petrol. But when it comes to the price elastic product, people or consumers decide to stop and then go for another product instead of the one that has a price change. So that is price elasticity. Here we have two graphs that shows the examples of price elastic and inelastic in demand. The first one is price elastic. Price elastic, remember, when there's a change in price, there will be a huge change in demand. Price inelastic, when there's a change in price, there will be a little change in demand of the product. So this is the difference. Let's look at our graph. In between the quantity 1, quantity 2, there's a huge change in elastic demand. But in inelastic demand, between the quantity 1 and quantity 2, there's a small change. That is the difference. So that is price elastic and inelastic. And there are different factors that leads to this elasticity. For example, it is the nature of the product. When we say the nature of the product, meaning is the product a luxury or a necessity? Nature of the product. Nature of the product, is it a necessity product or it is a luxury product? Let's make an example about a price elastic product. Let's talk about eggs. The price of eggs has increased and many consumers decide to stop buying eggs. And then the price of maize meal or rice or bread changes, but consumers continue to buy the product, meaning there's a difference now, a luxury product and the necessity product. The necessity product will be inelastic because it is a need to the consumers. So, but a product, when you say it is elastic, they don't really need that product. So the price elasticity of that product will say elastic. It will be elastic. That is the difference. And also the availability of the related products such as substitutes. If a product has many substitutes, it will be price elastic. If a product has many substitutes, it will be price elastic. Let's talk about meat. For example, we have different types. Examples, we have beef, we have pork, we have mutton, we also have chicken. We also have chicken. So if one of these products increases in price, consumers will go for another product because they are the substitutes. So meaning if there are many substitutes for that product, the demand of that product will be price elastic. But if there are few substitutes, it will be inelastic because there's no other option. They have to go for this product, whether the price changes or not. So that is an example of the elasticity of price elasticity of demand. Let's continue to the price elasticity of supply. Price elasticity of supply, the response of supply towards the change in price. That is price elasticity of supply. And then, as we have said before, price elastic, if there's a change in price of a product, there will be a huge change in quantity supplied. Price inelastic, a change in price will cause a little or no change in quantity supplied. So we also have the examples here. Elastic supply, remember the supply curve upsloping to the right. So this is elastic when it comes to supply. Check the difference in the quantity. Check the difference in inelastic between 60 and 64. There's a little change or there's little difference. But under the elastic supply, under graph C, there's a huge change in between the quantity at 60 and the quantity at 100. That is price elasticity of supply. So a product can be price elastic or price inelastic under supply, right? And then we also have the market equilibrium. The market equilibrium is when the demand of a product at a specific price is equal to the supply of that product at the same specific price. For example, let's look into this graph. We have the supply and demand of oranges at different prices. So we have the supply curve. This is supply curve. This is the demand curve as it is shown. And then now let's check the equilibrium price. So let's first go to the market equilibrium. The market equilibrium, it is where the demand and supply are equal. This is the point we are talking about. So at this point, the quantity supplied of oranges is equal to the quantity demanded of oranges, not different products, same product. Then we also have the equilibrium price. The equilibrium price, it is the price where supply and demand are equal. Let's check the equilibrium price in this graph. We have the point market equilibrium. Let's check now at which price are these two equal. It is at 12 rands. So our equilibrium price is 12 rands. Let's check the equilibrium quantity. At equilibrium quantity, let's go down. Equilibrium quantity, I think it's 800. For example, let's say 800. 800 is our equilibrium quantity. So that is equilibrium price at the price where demand and supply, the quantity demand and quantity supplied are equal. The equilibrium quantity where demand and supply of the products are equal. And then we also have the surplus. When you're talking about the surplus, it is when the products available are more than the products required. So meaning the quantity supplied is more than the quantity demanded. Then let's check the quantity, the surplus in this graph. The surplus in this graph will be above the equilibrium price. So on top of the equilibrium price, this part represents the surplus. It represents the surplus. Why do we say it represents the surplus? Let's check the quantities now. Let's go for 16 rands. Let's go for this price. Let's check the quantity demanded, 16 rands. We have 16 rands. Let's say 16 rands is equal to, let's check the demand. The demand here is, this is the demand. It is, let's say it's 400. It's 400 kg. Let's check the supply. This is the demand. Now let's go for the supply. The supply at 16 rands is is 1,000, it's 1,200. Let's say it's 1,200 kgs. That is the difference. That is the difference. The supply, 1,200 kgs, the products available. Then the demand is 400 kgs, meaning the supply of products is more than the demanded products, the quantity demand of the product, meaning there is a surplus, there's an excess of products. Then let's continue, that is a surplus. So on top of the quantity, sorry, the market equilibrium, or on top of the equilibrium price, we have the surplus, but below the equilibrium price, we have a shortage. With this part, we have the shortage. Then let's check our shortage now. We have let's remove this part. Okay, we have the shortage. Let's check the shortage. Let's go for 8 rands. Let's go for this price. Let's check the quantity supplied for this price. Quantity supplied at 8 rands is 400 rands. Let's say at 8 rands is 400 kg. Is 400 kg. This is the supply. Let's go for the demand. This is the demand curve. This is the demand curve. The demand curve is 1,200. 1,200 kg. Meaning, now this is the demand. The products that are required by consumers are more than the available products, the ones that are provided by suppliers, meaning there is a shortage of products. So that's how we navigate this graph. So shortage below the equilibrium price, surplus above the equilibrium price, the price where quantity supplied and quantity demand are equal. The market equilibrium where quantity demanded and quantity supply are equal. All right, that is market equilibrium. Let's continue. We have the shift in demand curve. The shift in demand curve, it occurs when the factors influencing demand other than the price change at the existing price. The price does not change, but the demand of the product increases. For example, the quality of product. We have talked about the quality of product. The spinach has been sold, but it was always of the poor quality, and then suddenly in the supermarkets, the spinach with the best quality is supplied by the producers. Now the demand for the spinach will increase, though the price did not change, which means the demand will increase, but the price stays the same. That will cause a shift in the demand curve. So this is the example of the shift in demand curve. The first one, a shift in demand curve, D1, meaning this is the original demand curve. It was the first demand curve. And then the demand of the product changed. Then we have D2, meaning the demand of the product decreased once the demand curve shifts to the left. Know that the demand of the product has decreased. But if the demand curve shifts to the right, meaning the demand of the product has increased. Remember, the price did not change, only the quantity demanded of the product has changed. So in this case, we had the D1, the original demand curve, but there was a decrease in the quantity demand of the product. For example, it was the festive season. Then now we were out of the festive season. Many products are no longer bought because they are we're now out of the festive season, or else it was because of the fashion. It was still in fashion. Now it is out of the fashion, meaning some consumers will stop buying those products because they are no longer on a fashion. So the demand will decrease. So the demand curve will shift to the right, so to the left, because it has decreased. But if the demand curve shifts to the right, meaning there was an increase in the demand, so the demand curve will shift to the right. That is the shift in demand. Let's go to the shift in supply curve. The shift in supply curve, it also occurs when the factors influencing the supply except price change at the existing price of a product. So if, as I've said before, if the quantity supplied increases, the supply curve will shift to the right. It will shift to the right. But if the supply curve decreases, if the supply of the product decreases, the supply curve will shift to the left. This is our examples. These graphs show those examples. So that is the shift in supply curve. If, for example, competitive products, for example, the availability of competitive products, we said they will decrease the quantity supplied. Subsidies, for example, will increase the quantity supplied. So these are the examples. S1, the original supply curve. S2, meaning the supply increased, it has shifted to the right. Then S1, the original supply curve, and then it has shifted to the left. So we need to remember, I said in the beginning, we need to know the demand and the supply when it comes to the definition. Be able to correctly state the law of demand and the law of supply. Be able to correctly draw the graph. Most of our papers have the graphs, so you need to be able to draw the graph, and you need to know the difference between a supply curve and the demand curve. A demand curve is downsloping to the right, but a supply curve is upsloping to the right. So we need to remember that. And this part is in agricultural marketing, which is in paper 2 of agricultural sciences in grade 12. In the whole paper, it has 35 marks in section B, but it is 15 marks in section A. That is a total of 15 marks. So, and now we have come to the end of our lesson. You can leave your questions on the comments. Don't forget to leave the name of your school so we give the shout outs. Please share, recommend, and subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channel. And thank you for watching. See you on our next lesson.